Welcome to 843 TV. I'm Lisa.
And I'm Catherine.
And here we're walking along the timeline in Beaufort City Hall, where there's all kind of amazing history about our area.
I highly recommend that you stop in and take a look at us as well. But today we have an interesting show. We're going to meet with the city councilmen, and they are Stephen Murray and Phil Cromer. And we also have Matt Sinclair, who's the Director of Public Projects and Facilities.
We're going to be talking about such growth and economic development coming to the city of Beaufort, so you don't want to miss it.
This is 843 TV,
where communities come to speak.
.843 TV, where the Low Country comes to speak.
.843 TV,
where communities come to speak.
Welcome to 843 TV. We are at the Beaufort City Hall, where it's always exciting to hear so many great improvements and updates coming to the county area here in the city. And joining us first is Stephen Murray, City Councilman. Good to see you again.
Yeah, good morning, Lisa. Great to be here.
Yeah, and we were talking beforehand. A lot of people may not realize you are actually a Beaufort native.
I am. I'm a third-generation Beaufort native. Born and raised here, grew up. I love it. It's a great little town.
So this is just heart and soul for you to be investing in the community here all these decades later, and so many improvements happening over the last so many years. But let's talk about first the Education Task Force.
Yeah, so City Council last week we stood up and formed a Higher Education Task Force. John Verity, who formerly chaired our Redevelopment Commission, and I will be co-chairing that committee. We've got about 9 committee members from all sectors of the community. We've got some new faces who've never really been on our boards and commissions before. But the idea is to look at our civic master plan, our comprehensive plan, look at USCB's academic master plan and Technical College of the Low Country's academic plan, and find out how they work together. Because I think City Council, through our 2030 visioning process earlier in this year, we see ourselves as having a role bringing some of these things together. Education, transportation, working more in the private sector with the business community. And so how can the city help support the expansion of higher education?
And that's terrific, because there's clearly a momentum that is happening here. I mean, we were just over at base camp and listening to all the stories there between bringing in IT companies, but also we want to educate our people here, and we want the young people to stay.
Yes.
And so you were raised here, you went and you came back, and now you're raising your family. So for us, what can we do for the young people to have them stay? Because you were part of that, you've experienced it.
Right. Well, and so, like you said, I'm a native, and so part of this work, being on council and championing economic development, is a selfish pursuit for me. My girls are 6. I have twin girls. And I have a handful of friends that would love to be back in Beaufort, but there's simply not the kind of economic opportunity that they need in order to cover the cost of living that we have in Beaufort County. So trying to diversify the economy to create some better opportunity, and my hope is that it's going to take us a while. It's going to take us 10, 15 years to really get to where we need to be. But if my girls choose to stay in Beaufort, and I hope they do, that there will be the type of opportunity for them that will allow them to live here and have a great quality of life like many of us enjoy.
Yes, absolutely. And so as you're working with TCL and USCB, again, the timeline is long term, but what do you foresee?
It is and it isn't. You know, I think informally the city has been working with specifically USCB over the last couple of years with the private sector. And so you've probably seen the new dorms that have gone up on Boundary Street. We've now got over 100 students that are living in those dorms. We've got an honors biology and honors nursing cohort. We'll be adding honors business next year. The arts program is expanding. We've got a conversation going about cybersecurity right now, about adding that within the next couple of years. So the good news is we already have some momentum in helping the college expand. This is more about formalizing it and making sure that the plans the college has aligns with the plans that the city residents and stakeholders have told us where the city wants to go.
And it's also a feeding system as well. You know, you want to educate your high school students and get them mentally prepared to go to college. We want to give them the tools. We want to tell them, you can go to college, you have the abilities to go to college.
Yes.
And our world is so quickly changing with IT.
Yes.
It's very fast.
Yeah, and I think if you look at any industry, finance, real estate, construction, HVAC, there is more technology being introduced into all of those professions.
True.
And I think
yeah.
the days of being able to just graduate high school with no secondary education, no skill sets, it's going to be very difficult to find a job. It's going to be very difficult to find a job that provides the kind of wages that will allow you to afford the cost of living here in Beaufort.
Right.
So if you read a report like the World Economic Forum's The Future of Jobs, they talk a lot about the fourth industrial revolution. People have multiple jobs in their life, and so where the colleges I think are valuable is that they teach people how to be lifelong learners.
Yes.
And so increasingly you will have to change your skill set throughout the course of your working career. And so that's why I think education around TCL and the University of Beaufort.
It's like an evolution.
Absolutely.
And the other thing I'm really excited about we've heard is that you also are offering programs where people are good to go after they receive the degree, like a nursing degree or some sort of service. It makes them, they're ready for a professional life. And that's
Yes.
very important.
Yes.
You're giving them with a purpose. This is what you can do.
Yep, absolutely.
Or I think it's important to note not just new graduates out of high school, but folks who may be coming down here like sort of a second wave of business life. Maybe expound on that a little bit.
Well, and I think so. If you look at the corridor, we're currently offering Code Camp, so you can sign up. I think it's $295. We offer them several times throughout the year. So if you're an adult learner, anywhere from 18 to 85, and you have an interest in technology and coding, you can go kind of try it on, see if you like it. If you do, then you can go take classes at USCB or take classes at TCL.
And
so
these are certificates as well, so you have achievement. So they
absolutely,
can,
yeah. So there's anything from a certificate program all the way up to a full-scale bachelor's degree and associate's degree. And so there's not this sort of one-size-fits-all. It really can be custom tailored to whatever your goals are to align with the employment that you're working towards.
Sure.
Well, I think that's exciting.
Yeah, it is.
Thank
Good
you
stuff.
for giving so much, sharing the information with us today. Continue on, and we'll be right back with more 843 TV. And we are back with 843 TV, and now we have Phil Cromer, who is a city councilman here in Beaufort, joining us. Thank you very much. So I want to start with a hot topic, affordable housing.
It's a very big issue in this area. I think that if you look around and realize that most of the employees in the city of Beaufort, for instance, and who work for the city of Beaufort, have to commute some considerable distance to come to work, that it's important that we have available housing and affordable housing for them. If we don't have that, it would compromise some of our economic development goals in the sense that we wouldn't have success in attracting people here because there's no place to live. It would also hurt our local economy. So it's in our best interest to take a look at this affordable housing issue and try to do something to alleviate it.
When we were talking with Stephen in the former segment, we're talking about educating the youth, the relationship with USCB and TCL, but the reality is if they do that to keep them here and there's nowhere that they can afford to live, then it's really of no avail.
So what are there are there tangible steps being put in place?
There are. As a matter of fact, the town for the last couple of years has been working with private investors who have low income housing tax credits, and they're developing projects around the city. We have one going on right now on Rebo Road. We've also donated city land to both Habitat for Humanity and to the Beaufort Housing Authority, and they are having 2 houses being built by Habitat and 8 apartments being built by the Beaufort Housing Authority for affordable housing. We're also stepping up a task force, and that was the purpose of this, is to look into what can the city and what should the city do in terms of affordable housing. What areas do we need to look into, for instance, our regulatory issues with zoning, with building codes, with fees, with permitting process, financing tools, incentives, all that type of thing to make sure that we can create an available housing stock and an affordable housing stock for our citizens.
It sounds like a long-term project.
It is.
So break down maybe some of the steps a little more
The short
for us.
term and then the midterm, because I think this is really important for everybody to understand this.
Well, short term, I think the task force is going to look at what can the city do in terms of regulation to make it easier to have affordable housing to take place. I think long term we need to look at purchasing land. One of the things might be a land bank. I know that the county is in the process of hiring a consultant to do a housing trust fund for the region, which would include Jasper and Beaufort counties. And I think that as part of that, we need to look at a land bank, because the cost of land is really the biggest impediment, I think, to affordable housing in the area. And so that's what we need to do, is try to find some available land and locate it close enough to the workplace that we can put in affordable housing.
Do those areas exist as far as your knowledge of the area?
Well, in the city of Beaufort, there's not too many large pieces of property where that would work,
Right.
but there are probably some on the fringe of the town that we could do it. I think you have to take a look at the work centers and draw a line around it and say, okay, in this area, where can we put affordable housing? Where would it work?
So is this task force in place now, or are we still trying to build this, put it together?
There have been 9 people selected for the task force. We will be meeting on the first Wednesday of each month, beginning December the 4th, except for January. It'll be January 14th because the 1st is New Year's Day. But we'll be meeting once each month. We're going to look at all these different topical areas each month and try to flesh them out. And then hopefully by the summertime, late summer, we'll have a report of recommendations to go to council.
And then would the public have availability to this information at that time in the summertime?
Well,
Once
all
you
the
sort of-
meetings will be open to the public.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
they can come and listen in. And yes, when the report comes out, it has to go to council, and council will probably have a public hearing on anything we decide to do.
When do the meetings take place? How can people find out the schedule?
Well, they'll take place here in this planning conference room the first Wednesday of each month at 3 o'clock. It'll last probably an hour and a half. And as I said, we're going to start out with a sort of an overall view of the housing problem. And then we're going to drill down in each of these different areas, with land availability, incentives, financing tools, all that. One topic a month and flesh them out pretty good. And then hopefully by the summer we'll have a report we can give to council.
This is very exciting, but one thing I do want to share with our audience is that, Phil, you have been a part of this community for a long time. I mean, you have long lineage between here and Charleston with your wife. So you've seen a lot of development, you've seen a lot of frustration. Do you feel there's a momentum going forward now? Do you see that?
I do, and we had 2 studies done. Basically, we had the Beaufort 2030 visioning that we looked at long-term trends for the next 10 years, and out of that and out of our strategic plan for the city, the affordable housing issue was at the top of the list. So that visioning plan that we did, we had 90 constituents came in and gave their thoughts on what was going on, and so that was one of the top topics. So it's on people's minds.
And the reality is, this is not a city of Beaufort issue only. It's a low country issue. It expands to Bluffton, Hilton Head, Jasper County. It's a collective area that this is really a struggle.
It's really a national problem, but mostly for us in the coastal area, it's a big, big problem because a lot of people moving here, it's driving the cost
Right.
of housing up. And so yes, it's a huge issue for us.
Well, we know that those of us who live here, how incredible it is to live here. So it's great to know that we're taking strides to help that for the future generation to be able to afford the luxuries here, just to be able to live in the environment. So we thank you for all the efforts that you are working on towards making that happen. And you all stay right here. We're going to be back in just a minute with more 843 TV from Beaufort City Hall. Welcome back to 843 TV at the City Hall in Beaufort, and now we're going to be talking with Matt St. Clair, who is the Director of Public Projects and Facilities. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Now, you've got a little military background, so talk about that with us.
I do. I did 30 years in the Marine Corps. I had the privilege to stand in the ranks beside the most awesome young men and women that make up the Marine Corps. Like I said, for 30 years. Retired in 2018. My last assignment was as the Chief of Staff for Marine Corps Recruit Depot, Paris Island.
Well, we thank you for your service, number one.
Yes,
Thank you.
that goes hands down. So we know you're new to your job. Tell us a little bit about what your responsibilities are at this position that you have now.
As the Director of Public Projects and Facilities for the City of Beaufort, I am responsible for the upkeep of all the facilities that the city owns. As well as oversee and be the project manager for any type of new construction projects that the city may undertake. I'm also involved in or have oversight of the efforts of the city to mitigate the effects of stormwater and rising sea level in the area.
Oh, interesting. All right, so you are part of the hurricane task then.
Oh yes, heavily involved in the.
It's kept you busy the last few years, extra
Absolutely.
busy for sure.
Absolutely.
Now, there has been a lot of growth and development over the last few years. What are some of the projects that are currently underway?
Some of the major projects that they're currently underway is a major streetscape project on Green Lawn Drive, which is just up from City Hall. Complete resurfacing of the road, add sidewalks, curbing, taking all the above ground utilities and putting them underground. So it'll really open up that area and allow for the residents and businesses that are there to really enjoy the improvements to that roadway. Doing 3 simultaneous projects down at the Arsenal building, which houses the visitor center for the city of Beaufort as well as a museum. We're changing the upper roof and the lower roof of that facility, changing out the windows, as well as doing some modifications to the restroom facility there. So that's a challenging project because it's a historical building.
Right.
So there's a lot of nuances that are involved in that, but we're excited about that as well. A lot of ongoing projects related to the city's efforts to mitigate stormwater. We partnered with University of South Carolina, College of Charleston, the South Carolina Sea Grant Consortium, as well as the Carolinas Integrated Sciences and Assessment to produce a flood vulnerability assessment that will provide a model to the city showing impacts of large rain events as well as the impacts of rising sea level that the city will then be able to use to inform our ongoing efforts of projects to mitigate against the rising sea level as well as the significant rain events. Help with maybe a future design as well as resources that will be required to facilitate those ongoing efforts and future efforts.
That's interesting because that is such a big issue, all the flooding that it does happen here when we do have those rains. What I'd like about the story though also is that you're tapping into the education programs in Charleston. It's all this thread, Lisa, talking with Base Camp and 8th, what we do, and knowing that you're looking for the educations for these programs that can help us right here in Beaufort and everything we've been talking about. I like that so much to hear that. So let me ask you, that's our immediate goals. What about long term? What is the next vision once we get that part under control?
Well, the city has its strategic objectives, the 6 strategic objectives of the city, and one of the main objectives in that, or one of the significant objectives in there, is the ongoing efforts to address stormwater and rising sea level. So that will take the city out for years to come.
Yeah.
Significant, several big projects have been recently completed towards that. The cleaning out of the Janeway Canal, completed a major project over at Twin Lakes Road, and that's because we're in the low country, and we're essentially at sea level or just slightly above it. And addressing the 9 identified challenged areas within the city is a long-term project for the city, and a lot of subject matter experts are involved in that, and we have a good plan in place, and we're just looking to continue to whittle away at it.
Yeah, but it's a big project.
And finally, let's talk about your relationship with the city's Public Works Department.
Yeah, the Director of Public Works, I use an old military terminology, supported and supporting relationship. The Director of Public Works has the unsung heroes of the city, and they maintain the over 30 parks and green spaces in the city. They maintain the streets, the drainage, traffic lights that the city owns that when they go out. They're maintaining the facilities, the marina, custodial crew that ensures the cleanliness of the facility. So and a small admin staff, and then the division that maintains all the vehicles and all the equipment that they use every day. I mean, you see them regardless, raining, cold.
They're out
It's
there
100
working.
degrees, they're out there working. So I provide him support where he needs it, and then I'll have to come to him and ask for his team, his crew down there to maybe go and move something or address an issue that's been identified, maybe as I get out about the city, or it's something that's come up from a concerned citizen. We rely heavily on our citizens to bring things to our attention. It's a daily relationship. We work hand in hand together, and without those men and women down in Public Works, the city we just wouldn't be able to upkeep it.
You know, Matt, thank you for sharing this, because that is such an important part of our community. So I want to thank you for sharing all the good details. So thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
And thank you for joining us. This is 843 TV.
Where communities come to speak.